All right, welcome back folks. It's time for our next 6.5 Grendel video. Now in today's video, we are going to continue with our work on Blake's wife's bullet, which is the 120 grain Hornady ELD Match. Now, the story behind this bullet is that a viewer named Blake asked his wife to pick up a box of 123 grain ELD match bullets, and instead of the 123s, she brought home a box of the 120s. So instead of shooting them, he decided to send them to me. Now, in case you missed the last video, these shot really well in my 18-inch Faxon barrel. We shot a slow-burning powder with Shooter's World Match rifle and a fast-burning powder with Hodgdon H322. Both powders did pretty darn well, especially H322. Some of the best groups I've ever shot with this gun. So I don't know if Blake just has a general disregard for the brilliance of his wife or just plain old sexism. I don't know, but his loss has been our gain. This 120 grain ELD match is clearly a very good fit with my barrel. So as you can see, I've ordered a couple more boxes of these guys. So I've got 250 of them on hand here, and I'm looking to keep exploring our powder options and see if we can come up with a really good load for my gun. I want to do a similar sort of thing here in today's video that we did in the last video. I want to shoot a relatively slow burning powder for this cartridge with PowerPro Varmint. The Sierra data in particular shows some really good velocities with PowerPro Varmint. We've had some luck with it with other bullets in 6.5 Grendel. So we're going to shoot Varmint and hope for good velocities and at least decent accuracy. On the fast burning side of things, I want to shoot VihtaVuori N133. Our velocities will be a little bit lower, but I'm hoping that we'll see similar accuracy that we saw in the last video with H322. So small groups, but maybe some slower velocities, and higher velocities, but maybe some bigger groups with Varmint. That's kind of what I'm expecting out of today's video. We are also switching brass. For the first time ever, all of my 6.5 Grendel testing has been done with Hornady brass. But I finally got up off my wallet and decided to order 100 pieces of the Lapua brass. This is expensive brass. I mean, that's just all there is to it. But Lapua brass is just as good as it gets. It is outstanding brass. And to show you why it's so outstanding, I went ahead and weighed all 100 pieces, and this is the weight distribution. All 100 pieces weighed between 111.0 grains up to 111.9 grains. So extremely consistent weight. No weird ones, no outliers. They're all perfect. If we look at the length, the way they came out of the box, it's not even worth making a chart. They were all 1.515 or 1.516 inches. So perfect length, extremely consistent weight. It's just the best brass that's available to us as reloaders. It is outstanding stuff. Now what I've done is I went ahead and fireformed 50 pieces of this Lapua brass off camera. I just picked up a lab radar chronograph, and this was a perfect load to test that chronograph with. I shot the 123 grain Sierra Match King with 28.5 grains of PowerPro Varmint at a 2.3 inch overall length, and this is a 50 shot group. So it ended up being about 1.4 inches. Now I was messing with this chronograph. It was driving me crazy. Every single shot I was messing around with the settings. So I was honestly surprised. I wasn't really concentrating on shooting a good group, but they still, you know, all of them went into this 1.4 inch group. I thought that was pretty impressive. So for today's video, that's what we're shooting. We're shooting once fired Lapua brass, and hopefully this excellent brass might just tighten our groups a little bit. I don't know. Here's one warning. If you decide to go with some Lapua 6.5 Grendel brass, these do have small flash holes. I'm an idiot, so I forgot about that. Like I knew it, but when I went to decap these guys, I threw my lead decapping die in the press and started trying to decap. Well, the first piece, it felt really difficult, and it dawned on me like, crap, the decapping pin in a lead decapping die is too big to fit through these Lapua flash holes. So what I switched to was my Redding decapping die. This guy has got a very small decapping pin. So if you decide to go with Lapua brass, you need to make sure you've got a decapping die. If you're planning to use a decapping die, you want to make sure that the pin is small enough to fit through the holes. Now, to resize these guys, I used a Forster resizing die, and this one I happen to have the decapping pin removed, but here's another Forster resizing die. You can see they have very small decapping pins as well, and this Lapua brass fits that decapping pin no problem. So just, before you start either resizing with a decapping pin in place or using a universal decapping pin, make sure that pin is going to fit through the flash holes okay. Now, just to finish off the discussion about the brass, I did wet tumble these guys and resize them. I've already deburred and chamfered the case mouth, but I have not primed them yet. So we need to prime them, and then we'll be ready for powder and bullet. So that's where we stand with this. Now let's talk about our load data. Well, first of all, I'll mention that we're using CCI 450 primers. That's kind of what we've been using in 6.5 Grendel for quite a while, and they're doing a good job, so no reason to change. We're sticking with the CCI 450s. Now, the first powder here is Alliant PowerPro Varmint. Our load data is actually going to come from the Sierra data. They have PowerPro Varmint data for their 120 grain Sierra Match King, which is reasonably close, and also the 123 grain Sierra Match King. So for the 120 grain Match King, they show a max charge of 29.3 grains. Unfortunately, Hornady in their data does not have PowerPro Varmint. So the Sierra is the best we've got to go off of. We're going to shoot up to 29.0 grains. I want to shoot 3/10 of a grain increments, so that puts us starting at 27.8. We're going to shoot an overall length of 2.260. We can go all the way out to 2.3 inches in our AR Stoner magazines, but this bullet hits the lands with my barrel at about 2.270. Or a little bit more than that. So at 2.260, we've got between 10 to 12 thousandths of jump. So that's the overall length we're going to stick with. So the next powder, VihtaVuori N133, we're also going with the Sierra data. But this charge weights with this guy is a little bit more difficult decision because, so Sierra posted some 6.5 Grendel load data on their website. It's been, I don't know, a year at least. And the sheet that they shared there, they showed a max charge with N133 of 23.9 grains. So VihtaVuori has got 6.5 Grendel data. With the 123 grain Sierra Match King, or maybe it was the Lapua Cinar. Actually, it was the Match King. The 123 grain Sierra Match King, they show a max charge of 26.7. So that's a huge spread. But Sierra just released an app. They just released updated load data in an app. And in the new app, they show a max charge of 25.0 grains. So they seem to have kind of revised their max charge since they shared that data on their website and since they just released this app. So we're going to shoot up to what the app shows, 25.0 grains. We'll also shoot 3/10 of a grain increments. That'll take us down to 23.8 as a starting charge. So does that cover it? I think that pretty much covers it. That's the plan for today. I guess the next step is to go ahead and seat our primers. Now, in case you missed my recent video on the Hornady Lock and Load Classic kit, this is the hand primer that comes in that kit. That's what I'm going to be using today. And this guy uses standard shell holders. So there we go. That's our standard shell holder, the same one we use in the press. I still haven't figured out whether to put the primers in this guy while it's all put together. Let's try that. Yeah, let me put the shell holder back in. Okay, then let's see if we can get these primers into the tray while the thing is put together. Actually, this is a good opportunity because this tray of primers only has 50 pieces in it, so I should be able to flip it upside down and then do that. And then there's our 50 pieces. And then we dump frickin' primers all over the place. Okay. Yeah, that wasn't the hand primer's fault. That was just me trying to work around a camera. All right, they're all flipped over. So let's see if we can get this lid on here. One of them kind of flipped on us just a little bit. All right, there we go. All right, so I think we're ready to go. Yeah, let's see how this thing works. Now, here's a problem I'm running into with this freaking hand priming tool. They use the same tray for large and small primers. So with these small primers, see how a couple of them have turned sideways on me? I can't stop that from happening. I don't know how to keep that from happening. And once they get sideways, I don't know of any other remedy other than removing the top, getting them back the way they need to be, and then just being careful not to move the tool around too much. Yeah, all right, let's run with that. Okay, first piece went okay. So this is the fifth piece, and so far so good. Yeah, it seats them nicely, just a little bit below flush, and seems to do a good job as long as the stupid primers don't get flipped around. Like right now, you can see they're all just fine, but if I don't know, bounce it around a little bit, look at them. That guy, and that guy, and that guy, they've all flipped sideways. And that guy up there. So it seems to be a huge problem here with small primers. So let me pop the top off, get them fixed. All right, so we're back to normal here. The primer pockets in this Lapua brass after one firing feel extremely tight. They feel great. So I'm going to finish these up and then we'll be ready for powder. So there's not much drama to share with you here on the powder weighing front. I'm down to my last couple charges. I'm using the Hornady trickler that came in my Hornady lock and load kit. I took the advice of a bunch of viewers in the last video and I added some lead shot to the base of it. This is an extremely light little plastic trickler, but it's got a big void in the bottom. I filled it full of lead shot and that's making it much more stable and easy to use. So I've been trickling here with my favorite scale and then verifying it on the Hornady. And a lot of the times the Hornady's okay. Like this particular charge seemed to weigh just fine, but then you let it sit there for a minute and it bounces around. So the Hornady's kind of driving me crazy. I actually started this. I was planning to trickle with the Hornady scale and verify with this one, but it was driving me crazy. I had to change plans here. This is the Hornady G2 1500 scale, digital scale. It just sucks. I think that's all there is to it. I kept hoping maybe it was going to warm up and start reading more consistently and being more stable, but it just hasn't. So that's it here, last charge. Let's go ahead and move on to bullet seating. So I've decided to add one more test to this video. In the beginning when we were talking about our new Lapua brass, I didn't mention the case capacity difference at all between Hornady and Lapua. Well, I haven't actually measured it. So what I want to do with each of our powders, I want to take the middle charge and I want to load that charge in both Hornady and Lapua brass. And we'll compare the velocities we see and we'll compare the groups and it'll give us, a bit of a head-to-head comparison between the two types of brass. Now what that means is that I need 60 bullets instead of 50, which means I need to open up another box, which means that's a different lot number. So the middle charges are going to be loaded with a different lot number of bullets. So that'll give us an opportunity to compare the lot to lot difference here with the 120 grain ELD match. Actually, here real quick, we can go ahead and take a bullet-based ogive measurement on the two lots and see if they are different. This is the original lot of bullets. The first one here is 0.672 and the second one here is 0.671. So this is the Hornady bullet comparator. We're measuring bullet base to the ogive of the bullet. Let's measure a third one from that lot number. And that one's 0.671. So 0.671 to 0.672. So let's jump over to the newer lot number of bullets. This first one is a 0.671. The next one is a 0.671. And the third one is a 0.6715. Good. So these two different lot numbers here of 120 grain ELD matches, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference. Occasionally you'll switch bullet lot numbers and you'll see a pretty drastic difference. And if you've got your bullet seating die set up already and you go switching lot numbers and all of a sudden you look and your overall length has changed or your cartridge based to ogive measurement has changed. So it doesn't look like that's going to be the case here. All right, for a seating die, we're going to use my Forster Ultra Micrometer seating die here for 6.5 Grendel. I need the shell holder, which is still in the priming tool. All right, so we got our shell holder, we raise the ram all the way up, and we tighten down our seating die all the way. Now, there's one little quirk here about this Hornady press that I've learned, and that's that at the very top of the ram stroke, back that out just a little bit, when you raise the ram all the way to the top, like it goes up, but at the very last little bit of the stroke, it brings itself back down. So its highest point is not with the handle all the way down. It's just barely below that. So it's not really a big deal here with setting up a bullet seating die, which we're going to be a full turn off the shell holder anyway. Like there it is all the way down. Then we back it out at least one full turn. And actually, I'm going to be like almost a turn and a half because I want to get it to where I can read my vernier scale on this die. So let's tighten down the lock ring. Make sure our lock and load bushing is in there tight. Yep, everything's in there tight. So even with that little bit of excess upward movement I was talking about, we're still more than one full turn off the shell holder. Hopefully that made sense. I'll tell you what, I'll try and give you a close-up. I'll show you that ram coming to the top and then dropping down just a touch at the very top of the stroke. It's pretty interesting. Somebody had mentioned this in the comments. of my video on this press, and I hadn't realized it yet. All right, so we are ready to go. I've got like 10 ciders that I'm gonna load up here. We'll use those ciders here to get our bullet seating dialed in. Our cartridge base to ogive number in the last video was 1.728. So this is Hornady brass, but that shouldn't matter. So we're 51 thousandths long. So let's go ahead and come down. Let's go down 50 and see where that puts us. There we go. Yeah, so my quick math is a big failure sometimes. Yeah, we're still 10 thousandths too long. Let me see the second one and double check that before I go making any further adjustments on the die. But yeah, I think I was just 10 off on my quick math. Yep, 1.740. So let's go down, was it like 11 maybe, or 10? Oh, it's 12. Let's go ahead and let's just go down 12. That should be just about right. Let's see what that gets us. The first one, and there's the second one. 1.728, and the second one is 1.728. So we're right on the money. Let's double check our overall length. The first one, 2.258, that's very close to our target. Remember, was 2.260. Yep, and the second piece is right on the money, 2.260. So I expect that number to stay exactly the same here when we switch over. Here's our first piece of Lapua brass. Let's go ahead and seat this guy and see what happens. There it is. The actual overall length is perfect, 2.260. Let's check our cartridge base to ogive, and it is 1.7285. Let's do one more here. Cartridge base to ogive, 1.728, and the total overall length, 2.261. Beautiful. Now, we don't really have any compressed charges to worry about today. Like, there's plenty of capacity, I think. If any of them are going to be compressed, it's going to be our max charge of VihtaVuori N133. So let's grab one of those and seat it real quick, and we'll see if we get any crunchy sounds or if we get any stretching overall length. Nope, I didn't hear any crunching, and I still feel powder moving. So we're not going to have any worries today about our overall length stretching. There's the overall length, 2.257, and the cartridge base to ogive measurement, 1.728. Those are perfect. So this is going to be an extremely boring bullet seating session. We've got really nothing to worry about. Our numbers are coming out perfect. Ooh, I tell you what, let's go ahead and seat. Let's seat a couple from that other lot number of bullets, just in case, you know, they changed ogive shapes on us or something weird like that. Here's the first one, right on the number, 1.728. Let's see what the total overall length is, and it's perfect, right on the money, 2.260. So even a switch in lot numbers of bullets didn't make this interesting. So I think that's just about it, folks. I've run out of stuff to talk about. So let's go ahead and just get out on the range. All right, folks, it's time to get started. This is my rifle. There are a bunch that are similar, but this one belongs to me. It has an 18-inch Faxon heavy fluted barrel with a 1-in-8 twist. I've got a 6-to-24 power Vortex Diamondback tactical scope on this dude. This is a Gibbs side charging upper, a Midwest Industries rail. I'm using a Maxim bolt, a Magpul PRS stock, and we've got a Silencer Co. Omega suppressor on the end of it. You'll notice the gigantic blaze orange lab radar chronograph here. I just recently got this dude. I initially had a lot of problems with it when shooting suppressed, like it wouldn't trigger the chronograph. But I got this little microphone attachment. You know, I might notice this little microphone that's like an inch away from my suppressor. I bought that, and so far, things seem to be working well. So today, we're not going to use the magneto speed. I'm hoping that the lab radar is going to trigger properly and work properly for us. I shot a couple cider rounds through the gun, warm-up rounds, and all of those read properly and triggered the chronograph, so I'm hoping for the best here. Now, the magazine I'm using, this is a 10-round magazine, an AR Stoner magazine from Midway, USA. This is actually a 6.8 SPC magazine that I had bought to use with 224 Valkyrie. But my 10-round Grendel mag started giving me problems, so I thought I'd try out the 6.8 magazine. It's been functioning perfectly, so seems to fit just fine. What I like about these AR Stoner magazines is, you know, they give us 2.3 inches of maximum overall length, where a lot of the others are a little bit shorter. You can't quite fit cartridges that are as long in some of the others. So the AR Stoner magazine's been working out well for us. The target's at 100 yards. I've got 1-inch dots, and I think that pretty much covers it. We're going to start off with PowerPro Varmint. 27.8 grains is our first charge. Now, after, like, these are all Lapua brass, but after the third group, 28.4 grains, I need to switch over to my box of ciders and shoot the Hornady brass with that 28.4 grain load. So don't let me forget that. Please remind me. All right, let's get this party started. First up is 27.8 grains. All right, how about that for a start? That's really good stuff. Now, I didn't bother chasing down the brass after the first shot because I saw that the velocity here is pretty low. And just from my experience with Alliant PowerPro Varmint, I know that a 2,237 feet per second velocity is not going to give us pressure problems. So it wasn't worth breaking my cheek weld to go chase down the brass. But I did gather up the brass after the group. They all look great, just as expected. Excellent group. Velocity a little bit lower than we expected. Really crappy standard deviation at 22.4. But let's see if things improve. We're moving on. 28.1 grains is next. All right, that's more good stuff. Brass still looks awesome. Our standard deviation tightened up a little bit. Hopefully maybe that's a trend. You know, maybe we're heading towards some better numbers. Next up is 28.4. Now this is the one. After I shoot this one, I need to switch over to the Hornady brass. Do not let me forget to do that. We'll see if this will group. All right, so it's been a while since I've done that. That was a double fire, bit of a double tap. I got a little bit lazy with my trigger finger. I think I'm using a LaRue MBT trigger. I think that's the first time I've ever done it with the LaRue. But back with my old trigger and 6.5 Grendel, I used to do it all the freaking time. So it is what it is, no big deal. Okay, so we've made it up to 2,321 feet per second on velocity. Now, it's time to switch over to our Hornady brass, and we're going to shoot the exact same load as the last group. 28.4 grains of PowerPro Varmint, and we'll see what velocity difference we get. And hopefully the groups stay tight. All right, very little change in velocity. Another good group. So the groups are kind of similar between the two brass. The Hornady was 2332 and the Lapua was 2321. The Hornady, for these 5 shots, shot a better standard deviation number. But the important part, you know, is that I think we're going to find here at the end of the video, whenever we measure case capacity and compare between the two, I think we're probably going to find that they're pretty similar, which is good, which hopefully means that, you know, most of our load data can transfer from one, you know, brand of brass to the other. We don't have to worry too much about pressure or the sorts of, you know, things you have to worry about whenever you've got 2 brands of brass with drastically different case capacity. So we'll see if this same result holds true when we get over to VihtaVuori N133. So that group, I was getting a little bit of mirage off my suppressor. I'm going to take a break for just a second, let the barrel cool just a touch, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, so I took a little break for a few minutes. The rain has picked up. I guess I didn't mention the weather. It is right at freezing. I've got this kind of wintry mix, sort of sleet and rain and a little bit of snow coming down. So that's what we're dealing with there. Time to switch back to the Lapua brass. Our next charge is 28.7 grains of PowerPro Varmint. Let's see if it'll group. All right, another good group and a really great standard deviation on that one of 7.4, extreme spread of 19 feet per second. And the brass looks great as well. Our velocities are getting respectable. Like the last video with, what was that, Shooter's World Match Rifle, we made it a little bit over 2,500 feet per second. We're not going to get there here with PowerPro Varmint, but you know, we've still got a little bit of room to work up, I think. And the groups are awesome. So I'm happy with, I'm happy with what's going on here. So this is our last group with PowerPro Varmint, 29.0 grains. All right, that's a good group. That is a really good group. Man, that is just freaking awesome. Our top charge gave us the best group. Yeah, or very close to it. I mean, it's one of the best groups. Our velocity's up to 2372. The brass looks fantastic, so we can go ahead and move up a little bit here in the next video if we want to. Standard deviation of 8.5, extreme spread of 21. Those are outstanding numbers for a ball powder like PowerPro Varmint. So extremely happy with the results here with Varmint. Like, I'm pretty darn excited about this, this little target we got going on down there. That's some pretty decent shooting. So now it's time to move on to VihtaVuori N133. Our first charge weight is 23.8, and let's hope the good groups continue. All right, so our velocity was nice and low there, kind of like we expected. What was it, 2189? Great standard deviation number of 9.1 feet per second. Pretty good group. The brass looked good. It's all good. So we're moving on. 24.1 grains is next. All right, brass looks great, group looks great. We got a little velocity bump up to 2210. Outstanding standard deviation of 5.2, our best of the day so far. Extreme spread of 11 feet per second. This is really good stuff. So next is 24.4 grains. First up is the Lapua brass, and then once we shoot this group, we'll switch over to the Hornady brass and see what the difference is. So let's see what happens. All right, another awesome group. The brass still looks great. Another single digit standard deviation. Like, it is all good. So here we go with the same load, but this time it's in Hornady brass. All right, the gun didn't go off. Yeah, I think I've got one in the chamber. I've only got 4 left in the magazine. So let's give it a second to cook here. It's been a while since we've had a misfire. That's pretty weird. All right, it's been a minute or so. Let's go ahead and eject that round and see what it looks like. Yeah, that looks like a good primer strike. Huh, that's weird. I'll tell you what, let's shoot the other 4. We'll see how they do, and then we'll give that primer another strike here at the end maybe. Okay, no problems whatsoever with the other 4. So let's load this guy in one more time and try it again. Nope, didn't go off that time either. So it seems like we got a dud primer maybe. I'm gonna give it just a minute before I eject it. Well, while we're waiting, we can say that, yeah, that group was great. The velocity was just a little bit higher than it was with the Lapua, which is the same exact thing we saw with Alliant PowerPro Varmint. The standard deviation of those 4 shots was 3.7 with an extreme spread of 8. So really good performance here from the Hornady brass. You know, it's hanging right in there with the Lapua, and the velocities seem to be pretty darn close. All right, that's enough wait time. Yeah, we'll pull this guy apart later and we'll see if the primer went off. I assume it probably didn't. Okay, 2 more groups to go. Next up is 24.7 grains of N133 in the Lapua brass. Let's see how it shoots. My freaking fingers are getting numb. It's a little bit cold out here. All right, more of the same. Good looking brass, a great looking group, excellent standard deviation. So just more of the same. So here's our last group, 25.0 grains of N133. This last group, another great group. The brass looks awesome. Everything's awesome. Basically, everything about today is awesome. What a great little day on the range here. So let's get back to the bench and have a closer look at everything. All right, folks, a look at the brass here is going to be very fast because we did not hit even marginal pressure signs today. Like here's our max charge of PowerPro Varmint. Not so much as the slightest bit of an ejector mark. Now the brass is kind of freaking dirty because it was raining and it was muddy. So I was picking them up out of the mud, but other than that, this is just good looking brass. I think here with PowerPro Varmint, we're going to be able to go a little bit farther, keep pushing up towards some higher velocities. So couldn't be happier with our brass today. Now, the round that did not go off, one of the Hornadys, the Hornady brass, I went ahead and pulled the bullet and popped out the primer. Guess what? This had no freaking powder in it. I can't believe I did this. Huge, dangerous mistake. But this one, I failed to put powder in there. All that came out were a few flakes of some black crap. Yeah, there you go, a little bit of primer residue. The boat tail of the bullet was blackened, and I just dropped the freaking primer. And I'm probably not going to be able to find it in the floor. But it had gone off just like normal. So this was an empty case with no powder in it. I cannot freaking believe I did that. Okay, so now let's have a look at the groups. And we might just spend a half hour looking at these groups because this is a pretty target. This is probably the best target we've shot with this Faxon barrel. We only had one that was over an inch. That second group, 28.1 grains of varmint, was 1.037 inches, but everything else was comfortably under an inch. Just outstanding stuff. And the best part of it all is our 2 best groups of the day were the 2 highest charges. So our top charge of varmint was a 0.416 inch group, and our top charge of N133 was a 0.426 inch group. That is really good stuff. Both powders had a very stable point of impact, right? Not a lot of shifting point of impact going on here or anything like that. So we basically shot from 2,200 feet per second up to 2,400 feet per second with no real change of zero whatsoever. I was really happy to see the standard deviation numbers tighten up on the top end with PowerPro Varmint, the top row. Those last 3 groups, 7.9, 7.4, 8.5, that's good stuff. And we've got room to move up with Varmint. We had no pressure signs, and the Sierra data shows a little bit higher max charge. So PowerPro Varmint is definitely a candidate to be our load with this powder. So maybe the next video, I don't know, We'll see how it goes, but I want to revisit PowerPro Varmint and push it a little bit harder. The standard deviation numbers on the bottom row with VihtaVuori N133 were just amazing. All of them were single digits, so extremely consistent velocities. We made it up to 2,284 feet per second, which is respectable. So we've had really good luck with H322 and VihtaVuori N133. Excellent performance with this bullet. But PowerPro Varmint and the possibility of some higher velocities, like I think we could probably maybe hit about 2,450 feet per second with PowerPro Varmint maybe. If we could get to 2,450 and the accuracy holds together and perhaps these standard deviations stay nice and tight, that might be the load we're looking for. So this was just great, man. It's a great target. Everything about this test was just awesome. It came out perfect. I could not have asked for better performance. So extremely happy. Now, the Lapua versus Hornady test, our middle charges there. With Varmint, the Hornady actually shot a little bit better group with a .610 versus a .716. The standard deviation was significantly better. And down in the bottom row, the group was a little bit bigger, but the standard deviation was better. Both of them showed a little bit more velocity with the Hornady brass, and here in just a minute we'll test the case capacity of both. But I was happy to see the Hornady brass do a pretty good job. Like this has got, I think that was either 3 times fired or 4 times fired brass. It's never been annealed or anything like that, so I'm pretty happy to see the Hornady brass, hang right in there with the Lapua as far as accuracy and standard deviation goes. So I'll tell you what, let's roll right into the case capacity measurement. Yeah, let's do that right now. Okay, first let's test the Hornady. So this is a piece of brass that I'm dropping all over the place. This is a fired piece of brass from today. Let's weigh it empty, and we get 117.3. And then I've got a syringe full of water that I'm gonna squirt into this guy and fill it up and spill all over my bench. Okay, let's clean that up a little bit. All right, this is one task I just cannot do through the camera viewfinder. But this guy's now full of water and it's very even right here at the top. So let's measure this. 153.0. So 153.0 minus 117.3 was our original weight. It looks like 35.7 grains of water. So let's do the same thing with the Lapua. The empty weight is 114.8 and the full weight is 151.1. So 151.1 minus 114.8 is 36.3 grains of water. So the Lapua brass has got 1.7% more case capacity than the Hornady, which is why we saw slightly higher velocity from the Hornady brass. And I do mean slightly. Like the difference was 11 feet per second with PowerPro Varmint and 20 feet per second with VihtaVuori N133. So that's good. They're very close. So if you've got a good load worked up with one of them, you should be able to transfer over to the other one, make a minor tweak, and get right back where you want to be. That's good news. One thing I forgot to mention while we were looking at the target was the lot number, the bullet lot number. We switched boxes of bullets. That didn't seem to make any significant difference whatsoever. No shift in point of impact. The groups were still just as good as all of the others. So it looks like, at least with these particular lot numbers of ELD Match bullets, no change. And that is something they mention on their box. Yeah, right here. It says, superior uniformity delivers high levels of accuracy and bullet-to-bullet, lot-to-lot consistency. That seems to be what we saw today. I'm not sure where we're going next here. I haven't even really thought it through. We're going to stick with the 120 grain ELD Match here for probably a couple more videos with the Grendel. Because like I think I mentioned in the last video, I don't really have a go-to load worked up for this 18-inch Faxon barrel. So we're narrowing in on one. I might think of another powder or two that I want to test, but we're narrowing in on a load. PowerPro Varmint is a serious contender. Like I loved seeing those single-digit standard deviation numbers on the top end, and our best group was the highest charge. We may find that 29.0 grains, our top charge from today, maybe that's my load. It was only 2,372 feet per second, so I'd like a little bit more velocity. If we could get that up to 2450-ish and keep the excellent standard deviation numbers and the excellent groups, then that might be my load. I don't know. I'm also getting happier and happier with my 18-inch Faxon heavy fluted barrel. It's like their Match series heavy fluted barrel. When I first got it, like kind of our break-in period, things were a little bit shaky. Like we shot some crappy groups with this barrel. But lately it has been really, really impressing me. The fluted, like it is super light. Like that gun is so light. So it makes for a great package for hunting. So happy with the gun. I'm happy to have finally found a bullet that it clearly loves. And it's all good here on the Grendel front right now. So one final shout out to Blake's wife for picking out an awesome bullet for us. Blake, if she has a sister or even a cousin maybe who can pick bullets like this and happens to be single, get in touch, man. I'm available. So that's where we'll leave this one, folks. I'll see you guys next time.